Hello, Mega Man NT125 once again. This time I'm going to be talking about my speculation for Skyward Sword, coming out early 2011. First up, what I expect from the story. We don't really have all that many details about the story, other than that there's an evil force ruling the land below the clouds, and something happens, and Link needs to use the Skyward Sword to stop it. This evil force could be anything. Hopefully, though, it's not Ganondorf. Ganondorf is a great villain for sure, if executed properly, that is. An example of Ganondorf being executed wonderfully is Wind Waker, while an example of Ganondorf being executed poorly is Twilight Princess. However, the main reason why Ganondorf shouldn't be in Skyward Sword is he just wouldn't work well with the story. Skyward Sword is said to take place hundreds of years before Ocarina of Time. If you put Ocarina of Time first in the timeline, that would mean it would have to be a brand new Ganondorf, who dies in this one game. That's not like Nintendo at all. However, if you put the Four Sword series first with its own Ganondorf, it still doesn't work because, yes, it still have to be a new Ganon. This leads me to believe that Skyward Sword will either feature a brand new villain or another underused Zelda villain. The only villains that could work in this game that have been used before are Majora and Vati, but Vati can only work if Minish Cap goes before Skyward Sword. So assuming it doesn't, that leaves either Majora or a new villain. Honestly, I'm on the fence about a new villain. Examples where introducing new villains was done poorly include both Phantom Hourglass and Spirit Tracks. Bellum and Malladus are terrible villains. Malladus is just a Ganondorf clone, but they made him a lion instead of a pig. An example of where introducing a new villain was done great would be Twilight Princess, because Zant was a great villain, but he was shot down his right to villainhood by Ganondorf. Majora would be a great addition to theorists like myself, but that's more wishful thinking on my part, since Majora is my favorite villain. But it could work. We'll see. Next up, Hyrule. Being hundreds of years before Ocarina of Time, many different things could be going on in the land of Hyrule. For one, the Hyrulean Civil War described in Ocarina of Time could have not happened yet, or might be going on during the game. For those not educated of the war, the Civil War was a war described happening sometime before Ocarina of Time. This war caused the Zoras to form an alliance with the Hylian royal family, and caused the unification of Hyrule. Basically, this led to the creation of the Kingdom of Hyrule as we know it in the current games. It is not certain if Nintendo will really dwell into this, but if so, the Zoras might hate us in the game or try to kill us, or they might just not be very fond of us. Us being Link, that is. If the war is going on, that would mean it happened for hundreds of years. Why is this? Because the war just ended a few years before Ocarina of Time happened. This leads me to believe it will be before the war, and Hyrule will not be unified yet. We might even finally get to hear more about the Sheikah. I imagine the Hyrule in this game not being at all like the past ones. Maybe villages scattered around, a much smaller Hyrule castle and town, etc. Maybe famine is a problem around the region due to the races not sharing resources. Then again, this seems like a cheery game, so I don't think it'll be that dark. However, Wind Waker wasn't exactly cheery at some of the later parts of the game either. Maybe the two realms, Hyrule and Skyloft that is, will be completely different, with Skyloft being bright and cheery and Hyrule being dark and gloomy. I honestly would love that idea. It'd really give us a different kind of Hyrule we haven't really seen before. We'll see though. Stay tuned for part 2, where I'll be speculating about dungeons and the overworld.